Hello all, welcome to another endgame study of the Solving Harder Studies to Improve Chess Calculation series. This position comes from the chess composer Oldrich Duras. The position is very interesting because it made me remember the Orin Frink position I also brought here for the series, for the previous series. If you want, you can review it before going for this page. Maybe it's interesting. As always, I suggest you watch the guide. If you haven't, if you are already prepared, then the main countdown of 10 minutes will start, and then I'll catch you back to start the guided solution. And let's go for the solution. But before going to the moves, let me remember you one very important detail of this kind of positions. Of course, this pawn will try to promote. That's the key for winning this one. Otherwise, it will be very simple for black to draw. And one way for black to draw is to move the king to the corner. Why? Because if the king can reach the h8 corner, because it's on the opposite color of the color of our light square bishop, it will be a draw. If we reach a position where we are fighting in this situation against the bishop and the pawn and the king can reach the corner, it's a draw. Don't forget that. So one of the aims from black is to go with the king to the black corner, not only to take the pawn. Don't forget. So let's go for the moves. And if you have played bishop f5, it would be a big blunder, but don't worry because this was my move. I miss a defensive resource, of course, otherwise wouldn't be missed. And the situation is simple. The king just comes to f3, so probably here we advance the pawn to h4. Now the king takes the pawn, and of course, this situation the king can't approach, but of course the bishop is under attack, so needs to move. And I was thinking on moves like this one. And of course, I forgot that, okay, now if the pawn blocks, how can I progress? And the answer is we can't. So the pawn advanced, but the king can take it. And if we go with the bishop to the other side, let's say to h3, it's the same. Okay, now we are restricting the king to approach the pawn, of course, but then the pawn can move again. And of course, now we can't advance our pawn, otherwise the king goes to g5. Let's move the king, and now the king just goes around. And as I told you from the beginning of this solution, if the king reaches the corner, it's bye-bye. It will always be a draw. We can't remove it from there, so we wanted to be able to promote the pawn, and so we just get a draw from here. So big blunder, big surprise for me when I saw the solution. Whoa, what's going on over here? What a big mistake. Of course, moving our king is also very stupid. We just go with the king f3 and it's going to be very easy from now. Even if the king takes the pawn, the enemy king takes the other pawn. And of course, notice that now it's impossible. The king is a very easy path to go to the corner. It's not even for consideration moving the king on the first move. So we need to find the brilliant one, the last resource that white has. It is to go with bishop g2. Of course, now the king can take, otherwise the pawn says goodbye. I have a ticket to a queen, and so the king needs to move again. And of course, there are no ways to approach the pawn. Of course, going to f3 now it's impossible because the bishop is blocking that square, so the king needs to come to e3. From here, of course, we advance the pawn. Now the king takes the pawn, and now it's white to move again. So first minute for you, 1 minute, and if you need more, pause for more, and then I get you back to continue the solution. And over here we need to find the second brilliant one, the second sacrifice, bishop f3. So cutting the king from being able to approach the pawn. Notice that going to the other side doesn't work because the king just goes around. And now let's say, for example, we try to advance the pawn. Notice that the king will be really fast in reaching the corner. So not possible anymore to win. The king reaches the corner. It's an instant draw, at least, of course. So we need to sacrifice, but from the f3 square. Now, black to move. Black goes with the king to e5. No, normal. It's going to try to go around again. Now we advance the pawn. Notice a small detail. Now we have this square that the king needs to control. So the king needs to be inside the square of the promotion of the pawn. So the next move from black is a forced move. And now, again, the final moment, another minute for you. Pause if you need more, and find the continuation for white to go until the end with a win. And there are not two without three. Yes, third sacrifice from the bishop, last one. Another brilliant move because the king can't take it. Because, as we already know, in a pawn endgame, the king needs to stay inside the square. So it's too late now for the king. And so we reach the queen. So without being able to take the bishop, the king needs to stay in the corner. And so the only move possible is to go to e7. But now we advance the pawn, forcing the king to move to f8. So we have reduced the square. Now it's black forced to go to this side. And from here, the king can't approach anymore our pawn. Of course, we don't advance the pawn. Now we need to use the king, but the king goes and grabs every pawn available before going and helping the pawn to promote in the next moves. So, as you can see from the beginning, a position that looks like similar to the one from Orin Frink brought us in the same year. I don't know which one made it first, but I probably guess Orin Frink made the first one, and then Oldrich Duras made this kind of improvement. Very interesting. If you understood the other one, I think it's even better because you already know some teams from the position. Hope you also have enjoyed, and as always, I catch you up with future videos. Bye bye.